Think long and hard and what kind of person you want to be in this field. Never in my time would I think I would have so many groin injury calls.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of 911 Delta Tethered for Life podcast. As usual, this episode may not be suitable for all listeners due to language and content, so listen with care and stay safe out there.
Hey y'all, we're back. We know you missed us last week, but my partner in crime, Annabug, forgot to hit the record button. I think this is one of her I'm old fuck it moments, but we won't tell her that. So it's take two.
Welcome back, guys. Tonight we have with us Derek Johnson from Tennessee. He is a dispatcher, police, fire, and rescue. Welcome, Derek. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Derek from Tennessee. Do police, fire, and EMS for all in one PSAP. I'm a father of one, another to be. I work full time for my city at the water department, and I work part time, 30 hours a week as 911 dispatcher.
Can you set the tone a little bit for us about how your center works and like how many people are there generally for on a shift and that kind of thing?
Sure. So we have the whole county. So we have all the little incorporated and little cities in with that. And we have 4 to 5 a shift. We try to get 5. We can barely make 4, but you know how that goes with staffing and call outs and all that. We have 2 pods. So each pod has 4 consoles on both sides of the room. So we have 1 person per radio channel or per city, essentially, that handles all of that. We all answer the phone. We all dispatch. There's no screeners. There's no we answer the call. We dispatch out all in the same motion. So if somebody is taking a call and it requires county's presence, now I'll still give it out to county, even though I'm not working county that day, but I'm answering my city's radio traffic. It all essentially is. It keeps everybody kind of not overstepping and beeping each other's ears when answering the radios.
Wow. That's different.
Interesting. And then, how many people do you have on fire and EMS?
Just 1. So really how we here to queue. So we have what's called another RC law. So all the little small incorporateds, their law channel is also covered by the fire and EMS person. Now the fire and EMS split up by cities as well. So if you're working one city, you're working their law and their fire. But since we're a big county-based area, you get the volunteer stations. You get the stations that are not in a city. So whenever I'm taking a call, shortness of breath, and I get questions, I'll say, okay, I'm asking you a few more questions, not delaying response time. My partner's getting dispatched out now. That's when whoever's EMS is listening into the room and like, oh, hey, that's me coming up. And once the call gets built, then they start paging out. So, and also we have partners. So whoever's working county is partnered with EMS. So if they step out, bathroom, whatever, or if they're getting busy, then they help them out. So we have partners where both city people will be partners and vice versa. So very big team effort.
Well, that sounds very confusing to my brain, but also pretty cool at the same time. Because that's something you'd really have to trust the folks that you are working with a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot going on for a relatively small center. I mean, with only 4 or 5 people.
With the staffing. Holy shit.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
God. Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah,
well, thank you and kudos to you guys.
Pretty easy. And then some days you get where, because we're off the interstate as well, so we cover. Our county does not handle non-injury 911 calls in the interstate. They get sent over to THP. Other counties have a choice to handle them. If it's not a non-injury, like motion assist or just I hit a deer, then we transfer to THP or let THP know. But if there is an injury, vehicle fire, any kind of requiring non-law enforcement to write a report, then we handle interstate. But we have three channels for incidents, so they're called IDA channels. You got 1, 2, and 3. And person working EMS is working trunking channel, paging channel, all 3 incident channels, and then that smaller law enforcement channel. And when you get 3 wrecks going at one time, and each call that's medical that happens outside of the city gets put on an incident channel because you have the smaller volunteer departments responding. And then if a call happens in the city limits, then it happens on that city's fire channel. So whoever's working that city handles that traffic. So it can get hectic when you have 3 different out in the county, like falls, whatever, medical calls come through, and then you're sure you probably catch up, and they're all responding at the same time talking. So you got to answer everything all at the same time while you're on the phone. It can get pretty crazy.
Do you know about how many law enforcement and fire rescue calls you handle a year?
Let's say we were at 100,000 last year.
It's pretty decent
Yeah.
amount for sure.
What made you decide to begin a career in public safety?
Helping other people. I was raised to put others before myself, if possible, and was lending a helping hand. Need a second job. The economy's taken a massive rise. The cost of living and all things have happened in the past couple 5 or 6 years. So I decided to work part-time dispatcher, try my hand in that to see if I can do it. I always like a challenge. So again, I work almost 30 hours a week. So I guess I'm doing something right. They keep wanting me to work and cover for people and all that stuff. I've experienced as a corrections officer, doing armed security as well on that side of the career field, and being like personal protection for celebrities, country music stars, all that.
Get the
And
fuck out of here.
So I'm no stranger to stress and pressure and all of that. So it was definitely a sink or swim moment, and I decided to swim.
Yep, very good. Very nice. All right. Can you share a memorable, good or bad, experience, call, or case from your career that's had a significant impact on you?
Everybody has those good and bad calls, but the one that most sticks out is going to be the officer involved shooting on January 31st. As law enforcement officer dispatcher, we know it's chaotic on both sides when you hear shots fired or he has a weapon. Because when you're on the side of the radio, you don't know what's happening. You have no eyes. You don't know who to send, where they're at, what's going on. So you're just waiting for responses. And you're just listening and going with your gut feelings. So
Yeah.
we should have a shots fired call in the area of town that gets them frequently, and had a unit heading that way. Usually it's like mufflers, doors just slamming, or actual shots fired just in the air. We also received a call about a stolen vehicle the next road over. Again, not uncommon. Someone's boyfriend or friend that turned their car in time, whatever, civil issue. So our first officer arrives on scene and sees, or to the shots fired, and then sees a car wrecked and it's hit a tree in the side of the road, unrelated to the call. So he pulls up to see what's going on, to make sure person's okay, just checking everything out. And he gets out the vehicle not knowing what's going to happen now. We had no idea the accident wasn't related, so he goes to see it and walks up there, and the subject branches a firearm and points at him. The officer runs back to his squad car, and you can hear over the radio he has a gun and is pointing at me. And that alone's enough to set panic on both sides.
Most definitely.
Another unit
Right.
is rolling on the scene because he's responding to the stolen vehicle. And he pulls up and gets line of sight on the side of the road. We have a third and fourth unit that arrive So at this point, everybody's sending. We have all of our officers heading that way, and we have 4 on duty that night. So they have him surrounded, and they're working their way up towards the vehicle, giving him commands to stop. And he's always not listening, probably intoxicated. Can't say much about that, what he was on, if he was on anything. So the third officer who pulls up makes his way to the front of the vehicle and gets close enough to where he can give him commands to stop, hey, all of that. And then all of a sudden, he points and fires at the officer that has walked up to the front of the vehicle at the the driver's side door. We have a 4th officer at the rear passenger window looking at the front seat as well. So that he's completely surrounded. So once the first shot's fired, it's just a hail of bullets fire from.
Oh, God.
Thankfully, he was not hit. Our officer that was 5-10 foot away, but a hail of bullets come through, and this all lasted not even 5 minutes. From when he first pulled up to check on the vehicle and make sure who was driving was okay, to us hearing shots fired over the radio. Not even 5 minutes.
But it probably felt like a freaking eternity.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
the silence was so long after hearing shots fired. We don't know who was hit, who's hurt. We have no idea. So we immediately send EMS and fire on scene as soon as we hear shots fired. And that's where we have our great teamwork, because we all had a job to do. We all had someone still answering the phones, someone covering so-and-so's radio channel, one person's paging out fire and EMS out that way. So we didn't have a lot of panic set in on our side. No one froze. We all remained calm. We all took. My job was answer the phones, and it wasn't as important at the time. But I had to make sure calls still get answered. And thankfully, only one hurt was the victim. I mean, it just instant. As soon as he pulled up the scene, to help somebody who's wrecked out in the middle of the road, and he has a gun pointed at him. And now he's surrounded, and then you have bullets flying. And these guys, we know them personally. We've all met our officers. I know as being a smaller PSAT, we have options to meet our officers and talk with them occasionally. So we had that extra connection with them of who's hit, what's going on. So it definitely sets the panic in. I caught the tail end of it. I came in after working full time during it. So I caught all the radio traffic and coming in. I didn't catch when it first happened, but I caught towards the middle and end of the whole event. But playing everything back, going through, still answering questions. They sent us to a debrief. Got all of us together, just talked about it, went through all those things. But it was definitely, hey, anything could happen. That's why our status checks, when they're out, they're every 5 minutes with the officer. It's already policy. That's not because of this. It's just in general, we already had that 5-minute rule that we check on every 5 minutes. Even our EMS, every 10 minutes. If they're busy, then they'll say, hey, we're busy, or they'll say cancel status checks, and we'll cancel them. But even fire and EMS, we'll check them every 10 minutes. Make sure they're okay.
Right. We used to do 2 minutes on traffic stops and domestics, right, Case? 2 minutes on domestics and traffic stops, and then it went to 5 after that. And then EMS was 20 minutes. Fire, you always would get a 10-minute status check, and then if it was a fire and they needed 20-minute par checks. But yeah, and it just goes to show that you dispatch what you think is just a run-of-the-mill call, and it can turn into a shit show. Just
exactly
out of the blue.
It does. And I don't know
They
if
would
how
call it the 300 call syndrome, where you get 299 calls of just BS, and then that 300 call is the actual emergency. So you just have to be on your toes every single call.
Right. And then I'm sure since you were answering the phones during that, you got plenty of BS calls while that was happening.
yeah.
And you're
And
like, just
you
get
said
off
it
my phone.
you had said that you didn't really play an important part in that, but I mean answering those calls for everybody else's emergency, I mean it's pretty important, and I know you had to have had a hand in the actual incident as far as doing things to help those your fellow dispatchers at the time, because that when you have it just happens.
Yeah, I mean, just
Yeah.
answering the phone, like I know because sometimes it's like you don't want to hear the phone ring. Like when you're in an incident like that, you just don't want to
Hmm.
like the sound of the phone ringing is like
Yeah.
so
Well, that's a pretty intense call, and I don't know if you've how long you've been listening to our show, but I had also had an experience with officer involved shooting, and it entailed our canine, one of our canine units, and I'm just such a sucker for German shepherds in itself, and then to know that he actually got shot, and like you said, everything happened so fast in like 5 minute time frame, but it felt like everything was slow motion, but at the same time you didn't really have time to think about it because like you also said, everybody has a job, and it's you have to stay focused. You don't have time to think about really the worst or whatever in that moment. And just talking about all this, it gives me chills. Like it's just
That's just where your training comes into play. Even though
mhm,
it's not used a whole lot, having those incidents, not being like LA or New York, where it's common to have high stress calls
mhm.
like that. But that's where you have to fall back on the training of, all right, my job is this city doing this certain thing. We have that fallback plan of something like this does happen, that I'm doing this. And that's just where everybody just has to fall back on that back of your
Mhm.
mind training to
Yeah.
just pick a certain job to do and do it.
Yeah.
Regardless if it's your job or not, just handle somebody else's stuff while they're doing this and just do it.
Yes. Well, it is unfortunate that that person passed from, unfortunately, not being the smartest that night, but it's also relieving that your officers did not get hurt. So that's,
yeah, and it's awesome that you guys had that teamwork, that you just
yeah.
get in and do somebody else's work because sometimes people forget that that's what you're really there for.
Yeah.
And we talked about that with the hateful um environment a couple weeks ago. How far into the shift? You said you just came on. So how long did you have to work after that?
I work 4 to midnight at the city, and then I get off and drive 10 minutes to the center, so I'm there from 12:15 to 6 a.m.
Good
Okay.
God.
That's a lot. Shit.
Yeah. So I always find that when you have those incidents, like it is kind of like time slows down, but then when it's over and you look at the clock and you're like, oh crap, that was only a half hour. And
Yeah,
then it's like the rest of the shift drags because you're just, that adrenaline rush. And then, oh my God, that was only when you did the debrief. Did you do that with law enforcement as well, or was it
yes.
just dispatch?
Yeah. They invited both us and law enforcement to sit down and just kind of we did two different debriefs. One was to go over, I guess, the emotional and physical tolls of kind of just and then giving out like support cards and everything else, just getting resources to everybody. And then they went to a second one that actually went to a breakdown
Hmm.
of what all happened. And and going through and kind of actually rebuilding the day. So that way everybody can understand, get all their feelings out, and kind of not keep it inside and just put it out there, so that way it would help alleviate holding on to that call.
Now, do you feel those types of debriefings help, like for you personally? Not, I mean, obviously we can't speak for everybody else, but like, did you feel that kind of put a little closure on that for you, or?
I wasn't affected as much as the others, since I did come on towards the end of all that.
Mhm.
But since I was working that night, I did go. Also to be there for my coworkers and fellow officers there. But it kind of helped me build the picture. I'm not one to hold on to calls like that. Um, so me personally, it just helped me kind of see how they were feeling, what all went through their head, and how I could better help them, how I can support them, how it made them feel. That way we can just keep checking on each other to make sure everybody's going doing good forward throughout
Mhm.
the
Very
incident.
good.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because everybody's got a different perspective, right? I mean, I'm not a big fan of the debrief because I'm not like I don't want to. Of course, now I'm doing a podcast, right? So I'm gonna say this, and you're all gonna be like, right. But I'm not one to be like, I don't really take those calls home with me either. So I'm really not one. I don't want to rehash it, right? But it's interesting to hear other people's perception, like what they felt and what they experienced afterwards, I think. I don't know, does that sound nosy? But what did you think? Did you find that were you surprised that people had a different sort of perception than you did?
No, I knew that they would be the ones that were going through it worse. Only one officer didn't fire. He didn't have a good line of sight, but the other ones all did fire back at the subject. And just hearing how it made them feel, because a lot of them they're young, they're mid-20s,
Right.
and you got the one sergeant on duty. But I mean, they're in their 20s, and to take a life, to shoot back. I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
I mean,
it
because
definitely
hell, it.
is eye opening to see how it's affecting them, because nobody knows who hit who. Nobody. It was just shots being fired. We know the one officer that did get close did hit to strike him, but the other ones that did shoot, it was eye opening to see how their recollection of 5 minutes, if that, went, and
Right.
definitely gave me a different view on the other side of the radio, because we all know in the back of our heads it's dangerous. That's why we have the status checks. That's why we have protocols put in place. But when it actually happens and you hear it from the mouth of the horse, then it becomes real.
We know these people, we know how they feel about, they're not doing the job to go out and shoot people. That's not why they got into it. But sometimes I think the general public doesn't feel like it affects them. That always kind of
Right.
bothered me. It's like they
Because, like,
don't want to shoot somebody.
right.
It's a last resort.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that
Yeah.
5 minutes of their life at that point, it's going to stay with them forever.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you
Changes
can't
their life
erase that,
forever,
you
right?
know?
Mhm.
So, and that's another thing that the public just doesn't get. I mean, we're human too, and
So, with that being said, how do you manage stress and maintain resilience in such a demanding role?
Like I said, I don't bring it home with me. I wouldn't say I'm emotionless. I just know how to cut it off. There are
that's good.
times where you get 40 calls in a row of someone walking down the road, and they're a Karen calling again, of a minority walking down the road. I'm like, okay, just leave them alone. Like, and then I might answer the phone and might be a little irritated the next phone call, or I just finished giving CPR to an infant
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't make it, and then next call is someone's dog's barking, and then I may be a little upset because I'm like, really, I'm getting this,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, I can shut it off for the most part.
That's
Just
good.
gaming, family time, just going out, even just having no technology, just sitting out on the porch and just relaxing. I mean, just kind of
That's
getting a
good.
big mental reset helps for everybody, for any kind of profession, so you don't tie yourself down.
Yeah. Well, that's really good that you're able to do that. Most folks in this profession struggle with that a lot. So that's really good. And like you said, it doesn't mean that you're heartless or, emotionless or whatnot. It's just that you're able to handle, and that's really what the profession needs to, or at least the dark humor and that type of stuff to cope. And
Yeah, the amount of times that we get when someone ODs but they make it, and we just crack a joke at the end, just because we know they're fine now. So we crack a
yeah,
joke to break the tension, just to
yeah,
kind of get on to the next call, or to get on throughout the night. We try to find something funny they said, or something funny that happened during the call that we like misspelled something or mispronounced something over the radio. Just something to make fun of each other, just kind of to keep it going. But I mean, the ones we have
Right.
now all have that dark humor, all can kind of put it away, but it's definitely not a job for everybody, and that's fine. It's not weakness, it's not nothing against anybody, but a certain person has to do the job. That's why it's not for
Yeah.
everybody.
So what's the funniest thing, if you can remember, that you've ever said or typed?
Never in my time would I think I would have so many groin injury calls.
And they're going, right? Going.
Like first I was in training and the guy zipped it up. It's 3 in the morning and I can
Mm-hmm.
tell he's drunk. And he kept saying, I'm hurting. And I'm just like, where? Trying to get, just information to go through. And he's like, down there. Oh, down there can be anything.
Right. Like, are you talking about your big toe or what are we talking about?
And finally he gets it out that he's caught it in the zipper and it's bleeding. And now I
Happens.
have to type out in the notes that the caller has caught his privates in his zipper.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had another one where a guy was traveling for a job interview or doing whatever. He's in a hotel and he woke up and there was blood everywhere. He described it as a murder scene.
Oh, God.
He said that he had surgery down there and I guess his stitches busted. And he
Oh,
was
poor
just so
thing.
calm, cool, and collected.
yikes.
And
But it looked like a
and
murder
just,
scene.
yeah, and just having to get that over the radio and type that out. It's just, and then somebody
Oh.
took one of those pills for the gas station and had it last longer than 4 hours. So that was an interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing what people get themselves into, really. Yeah. I can say that definitely the penis and the vagina problems that people call 911 about, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." And sometimes they are, especially I think the older people, they tend to be like, "Oh, down there," or her private parts, like if it's the husband calling or something. But then you have these other people who are just like, this might be TMI for you, but this was especially hilarious for me one of the jurisdictions I worked in, we had this frequent flyer lady. She was a little crazy. And there were 2 medics on the ambulance in town. And that's where she lived in town. And I loved to terrorize them with her because she was just always a treat. And this particular evening, she calls, and just as soon as I answer the phone, blurts out, "I have been bleeding for 5 days, and my boyfriend decided that he couldn't stand not having sex any longer. So he did it to me, and now I'm just bleeding even worse everywhere."
Oh man.
And I'm like, "Whoa, hold on. It was a nice, quiet evening before you called." And it was like after 1 o'clock. It was like 1 a.m. or because I work nights. And I was like, well, these 2, they're gonna enjoy this call. So yeah, I actually had great pleasure waking them up with a vaginal bleed because I was like, you guys, you always want. They were like the jokesters, right? And
Yeah.
they were like, you could just tell by the tone. They were like, oh my god, no. But yeah, just boom, like she would do that to you. Like it wasn't that was probably the craziest one. Like as far as just TMI, I didn't need to know about. She had some crazier things that she would call and say. It was a very interesting situation.
Being out
Oh
in the
yeah.
country area, we get a lot of animal calls, and I had my first cat in the tree call a few weeks ago. After 2 years of doing it, was my first cat in the tree, and all you hear her is, "It's okay, baby," and the cat's just meowing his head off and
Right.
everything else, and I was like, "Really?"
Mhm.
Out of all the weird calls I've had, I've never had a cat in the tree yet. Finally get that. And we have this lady who claims she was kidnapped and was
Yeah.
talking all low, and thankfully, our map, most smartphones will just instantly ping you at a house using your GPS. So I had her location already pulled up. I was trying to get her address. She said 3 men kidnapped her and took her somewhere, and I had her address pulled up on the map, and I could tell something wasn't right anyways. So I kept asking her questions. So she was taken from a rock quarry or something, and I'm like, "That's..."
Oh.
And she was somewhere in 5 minutes. I'm like, "There's nowhere." Okay, so I built it as a welfare check, but it's just one of those things that where it's like, okay,
Mhm.
let me ask you a few more questions because this can go from 0 to 100 real quick.
Yeah.
And then the amount of kids that take drugs and don't want to talk to me about it.
Mm.
I had a kid
Okay.
take shrooms, said he wasn't feeling okay,
I guess
and he
not.
wasn't doing good, and it felt like he was gonna die. But he didn't say he took shrooms.
Right.
So I built it as weak altered mental. So I'm asking, when did he last eat? When did he last drink? Any kind of medications? All that to just rule out anything. And then when I asked him if he had any drugs or alcohol, he went, "Well, never mind." And then I had to go in dad mode. I was like, "No, sir, I need to know what you have taken so we can get you help." And
Right.
I said, "I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help you." And he's underage, but he had been taking shrooms that he thinks were laced with fentanyl because he
Oh
had shrooms
shit.
before, but it never felt like this. So,
Mm.
and then I had a girl last night actually call and said that she just felt weird and she was vomiting and not feeling good. And turns out that she has taken antidepressants and started smoking weed all within the same 5-minute period. And now she's not feeling good. But I had to get into that with her of, I'm here to help you, not judge you. Let me know what
It's
you
like,
did
right.
so we can get help to you.
Like, if you're not going to tell us and be honest so you can actually get help, if you're really that fucking scared, like, then why are you calling? Like,
Exactly.
Right. And they always think that it's our first rodeo. Like, nobody has ever said that before.
Right.
Like, okay.
I've
It's
heard
crazy.
worse, and I don't partake in those activities for weed, but I don't think weed on the list of drug activity is going to be number one of of important of being bad there. But I'm just like,
Right.
okay, how hard was that?
Right.
It's crazy.
Right. And then you wonder sometimes, like, fire rescue or law enforcement, and they're like, are you stupid? What were you doing? And we're like, well, we're only working with the information they're giving us.
Yeah. All right. So, what are the key qualities or skills that you believe are essential for someone working in public safety?
For me, the ability to turn on work mode off and on, and not carry those calls home or on to the next call. And again, it's not for everybody, and that's okay. That's why there's safe military, not for everybody. But just being open minded, listening, being caring, but not too caring. If that makes sense.
It totally does for me.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you have to be. I think Dr. Meredith talked about it, but it's like you have to be able to empathize, but not so much that you take it home with you. I think that's very
That and
important.
multitasking. Because we have 6
Oh yeah.
screens per console.
Right.
And I'm running tags. I'm answering radio traffic. I'm looking up somebody on the screen, doing this and the other, all while on the phone. So it's just multitasking, knowing, and just getting a good flow.
So, Derek, what advice would you give someone who is new or considering a career in public safety?
Think long and hard and what kind of person you want to be in this field, because it can turn somebody sour. Just hearing all the bad things, and then you get that bad connotation of everybody, and then you just sound not friendly or nice on the phone all the time.
Yep.
Um, Also, the earlier qualities of just not being too emotional. Don't get too invested if you don't have to in calls. And when you're training, it's okay to mess up. That's where we learn. If you're doing everything right during training and they're not correcting you, you're just wrong, because what are you learning? There are so many calls that you're going to get working that are not covered in training. Like we had a stray goose come from the park and goes to someone's front yard. So when I dispatch law enforcement, because it's on a weekend and animal control is already closed, the officer arrives and then calls his sergeant because he doesn't know what to do. And then I hear on the radio 5 minutes later, he says he has one goose in custody heading back to the park.
Oh my God, he did not.
Like, there's just so many
That's great.
calls that you're just like, okay, what? Say that again? and it's
True.
and if you can't make judgment calls, because some calls don't require an officer out there. If they call on 911, it's an automatic officer responds, regardless if it's a missed dial or anything. But if it's a admin line, which we answer as well, that'll come to same center. Different policies take over, and it's your call. It's your call to say, "Hey, does the officer need to go, or can they call the person, or can you tell them to stop being stupid in a nice way?" Like a guy wanted a cop out there to tow a vehicle off his yard. His son's friends were parking there, and he wanted it towed. I'm like, "Sir, it's your property. You call a company yourself and get it towed, and won't charge you a dime. You don't, the officer." So it's really just knowing, and also just being in charge of the county. Like if there's high stress incidents, like I'm in charge of all the county's resources at my fingertips. stuff goes down, you're the one who has to be relied on to make the right call or the best call in your head. If you make a call, stick with it. Don't second guess yourself. If you made a bad call, that is okay. We're human. Stick with it and try to fix it. Don't make it worse by blaming somebody else for your mess up. It happens.
True that. Yes.
Yes,
To the best of
it
us.
does.
And we've all had those calls. I mean, somebody would be lying straight to your damn face if they told you they've never jacked some shit up during their dispatching career, because that would be straight up bullshit.
Right? Yep.
I mean, at least to a
Like
certain
it's
degree.
like fat fingering someone's address instead of 112, you put 113. I mean, or if there's two streets with the same name in two different cities you cover. I mean, that's why you check yourself and you verify with the person twice, but still we're human. We can still fat finger that second check. And then
Oh yeah.
it sucks because you sent help to the wrong place.
Mm-hmm.
But I bet your ass
And-
won't do it a second time, though.
Yeah.
See, that's right.
So it's
You're right.
you learn every day. So if you're not willing to learn
Been
every
there, done
day.
that.
then job's not for you.
Nope.
Yeah, because
Totally
as
agree.
soon, yeah, and as soon as you think, oh, I know it all or I've seen it all, something's gonna come in and you're gonna be like, nope, didn't see that one coming. Or you're gonna screw something up and you'll be like, oh man.
Yep. For sure.
I love it.
Well,
Great
Derek,
advice.
Yes. With that being said, so we are going to do something a little fun with you before we call it a night. So, Bug, do you want to start off our rapid fire questions for Derek?
I will. So, Derek, do you prefer texting or talking?
Text all day, every day.
All
right.
All right. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Both. I can get up in the morning, but I'm on a night schedule. So I get 4 hours sleep every day. And that's how it always is. So it's really, I'm more of a
Wow.
night person, but I can do mornings.
All right. If you were a superhero, which you might be, would you prefer invisibility or super strength?
Probably invisibility.
Man, like
Seems
all
so.
the dispatchers go with that.
Yep, I totally agree with that one.
Yep.
All right, one thing you can't live without.
My wife and son.
Awesome.
Those two are what keep me going throughout the day. Just get pictures of them and talking with them when I can and getting home and be able to unwind and relax.
That's great.
Yeah. All right. This one's a little more serious. One book or piece of literature you think everyone should read or listen to, doesn't have to be public safety related.
The Killer Angels. It's a Civil War.
We know
Yeah,
somebody
that's a
else
good
who's
one.
going to say that too.
Yeah,
I mean,
Killer Angels
my-
kind of gets through the mindset of all the generals and all their letters, their stories, and paints a picture of Civil War in a first-person view.
Wow,
That's pretty
That's-
funny, Case.
that is pretty funny. I
Yeah,
mean,
we've had that one twice. Yeah.
myself would say like People fucking magazine, because that's about where my mentality goes. All right, Derek, last question. What is the message you want to spread to the world?
I want everybody to mind their business.
Yes. Yes. Right.
I want everybody to mind their business, to love one another, and just be happy.
Well, that's some pretty good advice there.
Yeah.
Well-
I love it. Well, thank you for being with us tonight. It was great.
Thank you for having me.
Shout out to all you listeners this week who hung in there for the next episode, even though I forgot to record one last week. We really did do it. I just didn't record it. So thanks for hanging in with us, and congratulations to Brenda Herlevy for winning our contest on guessing why we didn't have an episode. We hope you enjoy your gift.
Till next time, y'all. Bye.
All right. Bye.
I want everybody to mind their business